What's happening? I'm back at Slapsville. This is Djordje, your friendly neighborhood bullfiddle cat, and I'm excited to be back. It feels something that I'm used to. I was gone for a month and a half, and but I'm happy that I maintained these slap streams, and it seems that all of you enjoyed. I couldn't figure out how to make my whole system work, so I'm a little bummed about that. So my microphones and all of that, it's something is going on. So you're probably not going to be able to hear my bass pretty well, like it used to. But it's more important that you can hear my guest. And as always, I'm really excited about today's guest. It's Martin Masakovsky, uh, excellent bass player, excellent musician overall, I would say. I met Martin maybe 5 or 6 years ago. A dear friend of mine who specialized in Romani violin playing. Ryan Feldhaus like sent me a video of Martin, and he said, "Hey, check out this dude. He plays all these odd time signatures, yeah, like you do, but he does it a little bit differently." And I was like, yeah, I have to check him out. I always do. Like whoever sends me something, like I immediately check it out. I'm still super excited about slap bass, like I used to be when I was a kid, and maybe I'm still a kid. And I checked him out, and he had like such an interesting technique, very different than the one that I use, and very different than most of the people that I'm familiar with use as well. And but he sounded great, very musical. I think that there's like more dynamics when he plays. So I was very excited that he agreed to be my guest today, and that he wanted to demonstrate his unique technique, so you guys can learn and just being exposed to something different and new. So um, what I want to give you a little introduction to Martin. He comes from a well-known music family from New Orleans, and he was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and that's where he still lives. At one point, he moved out to Europe to study Romani music. I'm gonna always say Romani. I think that I believe I said that before, but I'm always going to use Romani instead of Gypsy because that's proper way to say it. But whenever I say it, I'm thinking about Gypsy music. And he spent his youth like studying like visual arts and then music, and he's very creative person. I believe that he also lived in Holland, and that might be where he was exposed to Romani and world music in general. So I'm going to ask him that. First of all, I would like uh, to know if you guys hear me well, and please like comment on a live chat. And if you have questions for Martin as well, please comment as well. And we had like some issues with the sound, took us a bit like to figure out. So I think that he's going to sound perfect. I might not, but the guest is more important. All right, without further ado, I want to introduce my guest. I believe this is 10th episode of the Slapstream with Djordje, live from Slapsville. It's Martin Masakowski. How's it going, man?
Hello, Djordje. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Um, all right, it seems that people can hear it well, and we got like a hello from Milwaukee.
Oh, nice.
Um, how are you doing? How are you holding up during these crazy times?
I'm doing good. I find like I feel like a lot of musicians and artists I've spoken to, they're in some way it's a bit of a relief this time because it allows us a little bit of uh, rest, a break from gigging, which is kind of can be nice for a full time musician. And a time to kind of be a little more inward and more creative. Um, so I've actually been spending a lot of my time woodworking and learning more about lutherie work, which we can talk about later. But I've started to design and build my own bases, little
How many bases have you built so far?
Only two right now. I'm working on the third. um, and each one is a little bit different. I'm trying to fix the problems that the last one had. It's like, it's the ever going process, but I want to be able to sell them eventually.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
it's kind of the plan, but I have to, I'm a perfectionist, so it has to be
Yeah,
perfect.
it has to be the something that you're really happy with. And is that your main instrument? Is the bass that you built?
No, I mean I use a full size instrument as my main bass. Right now it's a bass that I've had for the last uh, 10, 15 years. It's an old German bass um, that I got in high school. I bought it off of eBay actually. By, it was broken. I got it like only a couple of $100. I got it, and I had to have it restored and whatever. I put a lot more money into it, but I
Have
mean,
you? So you were not the one that fixed it.
not at the time.
Oh,
No,
okay. But
it's
now
something
you would be able to do it, right?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I just got this summer a brand new instrument, like brand new for me. It's a beautiful 5 string bass
Oh, cool.
that I'll have set up with a high C string. Um, but it needs, and I knew it needed a little bit of setup work before buying it. But so it's like, let's say under the knife right now. But I'm doing most of the work on that myself, which is exciting. And I have a luthier in New Orleans who's helping me
Oh,
and
nice.
kind of guiding me. So that's great to learn from.
That's great. Uh, First question that I always ask, and I wanted to ask you, how happened that you, as I mentioned earlier, you have like an extremely unique slap technique, and we're going to demonstrate that soon.
Hmm.
How did you develop that particular style?
Well, I guess I was fortunate that I was exposed to, I'll say both, slap bass and arco bass. Um, Basically within the first few months of playing the instrument. Um, and I mean that, I'll certainly credit living in New Orleans and coming from a musical family to that, to having this exposure. At least for starters, my dad, Steve Masakowski, he's a great guitar player, and he's part of a band called Astral Project. And the bass player in Astral Project is James Singleton, who is also a very unique bass player, has a very unique style, um, and is almost like an uncle figure to me because they've been playing together longer than I've been alive. So I've seen him, my whole life playing the bass. Before I ever had any interest in playing the bass. And he has he doesn't do a lot of slapping, but his style of slapping, he does use a bit of his thumb. Maybe it comes a bit more from electric bass, even though I've never seen him play electric bass. Uh, and then once I started playing, within the first, uh, 6 months or something of me playing the bass, bass player Roland Guerin, who I think you're aware of, also from New Orleans, released an album called Swing, Groove, and Harmony, I think.
Yes.
And on that album, that like basically coincided the release date within a few months of me starting playing the bass. So that was just by chance a really really influential for me. And he had a track that was just solo slap bass on the song Cherokee, where he just kind of slapped the melody, and did a little solo. And just when I just having just started, I'd never heard that before, and I was like, wow, what is that sound? What is he doing? And so I tried to duplicate it myself, and without really having a visual reference. I don't know if YouTube was really a thing then, or maybe had just gotten started, but I wasn't aware of it. Uh, I kind of, yeah, started kind of developing my own slapping technique, and I can show you in a minute. I just, from my own perspective, I found it a little bit more. efficient to use more of my wrist than the more traditional up and down movement, I guess, if you want to say that.
So was that like influenced by bass guitar at all, the thumb thing, or not?
Uh, I'll say not, because really I almost never played much bass guitar. It was something that kind of avoided me my whole life, and I think because I always wanted to play acoustic. My dad tried to get me to start on bass guitar, but I was always frustrated with it because I'm like, I can't hear it. Just like, can we make? I was trying to look for an electric bass that had a, not knowing that they have acoustic electric basses at the time. I was trying to look for a solid body electric bass that had more acoustic volume. um, and I don't know. I was like, man, my fingers are too big. It's like confusing or something. So I never really played it, and I mean to this day, I don't, I can do some basic slapping stuff on electric bass, but not so much.
Yeah, me neither. I was never that good on on a bass guitar, especially not slapping bass guitar. I even never
Yeah.
liked it. There's like a few guys that I kind of respect, but it's never my thing.
Right.
But I didn't have a clue. I didn't make that connection that Steve is your dad, and I'm a fan of Astral Project, and I actually know James Singleton pretty well. And
Mm-hmm.
if you guys are not familiar with James and Astral Project, check them out. They're, I would say, progressive jazz band from New Orleans, but they
Mm-hmm.
have lots of cool New Orleans grooves with. They have a great drummer,
Johnny
John
Vidakovich.
Vidakovich, right?
Yeah.
And I like several years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, I went to James Singleton's place, and then we were talking slap, and he's excellent slap bass player, and now I can make a connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't never made
Yeah,
that
sure.
thing
And
uh,
Astro Project's been playing together for like over
forever.
40 years right now.
Yeah.
Which is,
Are they still
okay.
together? Are they still playing together?
They're still together. I mean, I haven't. I mean, obviously not during COVID, and they don't perform as regularly as they
Uh
used
huh.
to. But yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. And you mentioned Roland Garin, who's also from New Orleans. Excellent, like I would say, Milt Hinton style
Mm-hmm.
slap bass player. I sure hope like to get both of them on the Slapstream one day, and to demonstrate their technique. And that record that you mentioned, Groove, Swing, and Harmony, um, it's a good one, especially those songs that he plays, that Roland plays with an upright bass.
Mm-hmm.
Cherokee is a great example because I remember did it have like a two versions, like Cherokee long and Cherokee
Yes,
short
Cherokee long, Cherokee short, and I think he did one other that was
with
one other
slap.
solo slap piece that was
That's what
more of
he
a,
always does. Like
yeah.
he has like two or three the most, and then the rest of it is either straight ahead or like even bass guitar,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember correctly. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
it's been a
Yeah, it's
while
also
since I
been a
listened
while.
to Roland's records. Okay, so we've been talking about like your unique technique. So do you mind playing something?
Sure.
Sure. So what do you want to play?
Um, well, I'll just improvise something.
Okay.
That's the one thing I love so much about music in general is improvising, and I think, uh, you mentioned that I came from a kind of more of a visual art background as a kid, but some part of that always frustrated me because, like, I hate. I guess I would consider myself a perfectionist, even though I don't like take pride in that. It's like not necessarily a good thing because that can prevent you from a lot of
Sure.
stuff. But as doing visual art, I always get so frustrated with if I wasn't perfect or something, blah blah blah, and I would spend so much time on it, and it would, sometimes I would get it, and sometimes I'd just like give up. So especially if I had continued like that, I would never be able to like sell a piece. It's like that I
Yeah.
finally work on. But anyway, with music, especially with live performance, it's you don't have the opportunity to be perfect. I mean, that's just why we practice to get better and blah 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 blah. But you don't you don't get a second chance when you're performing, and you don't even have time to think back on what you just did, because it's like time is moving forward. You're with a band, you're with an audience. You might have another solo. You can prove something different or try to tell a different story, but otherwise, it's just kind of like a stream of consciousness.
Absolutely. It's about a story and it's about a ride. It's not about like being perfect. I personally never like, perfect music. It always
Mm-hmm.
had to have some kind of dirt and smell.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna solo you out. So just go ahead,
Cool.
play something cool.
You can hear my bass all right?
Oh man, I love your playing. I love your playing.
Thank you.
We got wow from Stefan Milic, and I'm sure that when more people hear you, they're gonna be um, asking questions. So guys, like feel free like to ask anything you have, like you want to know. Martin is here like for another hour or two, or I mean hour or more, like as long we have something like to talk about. So so he can demonstrate what he's doing. So you told me that you kind of copied the sound that you heard from Garen's records
Mm-hmm.
and seeing James Singleton's playing. Would you say
Mm-hmm.
that James has a little bit like a similar technique to you?
Yeah, I was thinking yesterday if I would how it kind of, because it's been a little while since I've seen James play, but if anything, if you would use his thumb, it, from what I recall, it's more of a like a primary attack as opposed
Hmm.
to as opposed to like a just a percussive slap, which is more of an electric bass thing. And I think that's the one of the main differences between slap upright and slap on electric is that on electric bass your main attack is the thumb. You know, whatever. But it's hard to get that. It's harder to get that kind of strong main attack using just your thumb,
Hmm.
like a mallet or something hitting the string on an upright. It's possible, but it doesn't carry the same way as on electric. So on upright, generally, our primary attack is an upstroke of the you
Yes,
know
you see, I never thought
of
about it, but yeah,
of the
there are some
fingers.
guys I seen like a Stanley Clark kind of using the electric slap bass technique on an upright. And he sounded good, and but it sounded like electric slap bass technique.
Mm-hmm.
So
So if I would play something in more James Singleton style, it would be. I feel like he would do something like that, which is something that I definitely have incorporated also into my playing. It's there's times when you need to have that attack from the thumb, in my opinion.
he also has very unique style. I remember when I came to his place and he played slap for a long time, and then which he doesn't do that often on
Mm-hmm.
records. There are some slapping on Astro Project records, but not that many, um, not that much. So another question that I wanted to ask is like, what does your like the band leaders that you're playing with like what do they think about slap? Do they encourage you to slap, or they're like, oh, maybe don't do it that often?
That's interesting, because that's definitely varied throughout, let's say, my career or throughout the years. Some people don't like it. Some people love it. Um, I try to just, you know, I play it where I think it's appropriate and it fits. And so if it doesn't fit within the context of like an accompanying sideman, then I might still use it in a solo.
Mm, okay. So would you say that you mostly use slap for solos?
No, there was a time a lot earlier where I did, and I think that was um, when I was just leaving high school, and I was really trying to develop it, I guess, and I felt like I could be more expressive that way, where a lot of my solos were that way. But I remember a guitar player I worked with back in the day was a local guitar player in New Orleans, Mark Welke, who kind of he tried to coax me out of only doing that. Why don't you do some different things, vary it up, play arco solo or something like this.
Hmm.
And so nowadays, and for a while, one thing, I mentioned that I've been at least fortunate enough to, the bass that my first bass came with a bow. So I've been practicing arco for equally as long. Um, and when I decided I wanted to get, or when I I noticed it was really hard to take arco solos, in particular in jazz. So I told myself I would just at least one solo per gig or per set I would play with entirely with the bow, because that's the time when you practice. That's when you have to be on your feet and when it kind of matters. And so nowadays, when I'm uh, depending on the band that I play with, if I'm soloing, I usually try to vary it up between pizzicato, arco, and slap techniques throughout the set, just to kind of it allows myself variation for different creative ideas, and it keeps the audience interested in bass solos, which is a rare thing.
Well, your solos are definitely interesting. I personally very enjoy very much like listening, to your playing, and it was great when I met you in New Orleans. I believe that Mark Rubin was the one that introduced us,
Mm-hmm.
and we were slapping the bass on the street. So it was like wow, it was cool. I I remember that those times. So when I mean not now, like obviously you don't have any gigs now, like all of us, but like which bands are you playing with? Like where can people hear you?
Um, I was telling you yesterday that I feel like I spread myself thin and across genres, So it's not that I work. Obviously, I work just freelance as a bass player with various jazz bands in New Orleans. Um, but the projects that I like more are all kind of like um, more specific to either like if I perform. Honestly, I perform a lot with my family. So if I'm
With your
playing with
dad?
my sister, yeah, with my dad, we have family bands, which is more kind of his compositions and more straight ahead, um,
Straight ahead jazz?
straight ahead jazz. Yeah. We have I play with my sister under her name's Sasha, Sasha Masakowski, and I'll play with her own projects, which are much more electronic, her own original compositions, and I play synthesizer, and I play my little travel bass and things. I have my own solo project that I've been developing, which I might try to play a little bit of later if we can get everything working. That's just it's somewhat looping, but ideally trying to be something different and going more in the direction of like electronic music,
Hmm.
but using just the sounds of the bass, which is
Something more artistic, I would say.
yeah, more artistic for sure.
Okay. And
And then, but I also play with like in New Orleans. I've been playing with two Moroccan musicians in different projects. One that's his name's Mahmoud Chouki, and it's more a fusion of Moroccan music and jazz, which is a ton of fun to play with, and I've gone on tour with him. Otherwise, I play with a more traditional Arabic ensemble with another another Moroccan, Amin. Um, the band is called No Frets, and it just is a nice opportunity for me to practice Arabic music and like microtonal music and get that into my head. And I play
like
sometimes,
Macams?
yeah,
You play
makam,
Macams? Oh, nice.
starting to. And I also sometimes play percussion in that band, so it also allows me a chance to practice percussion, like darbuka or something,
I
or rik.
I love playing Arabic music. It's such a rich culture um, and challenging, especially
Yeah,
from
it's
somebody
and
that
it's
comes like
so
from the
different
Western world.
so different to your ear, and I think that's what kind
Yes.
of drew me to a lot of this different Eastern music. You mentioned before that I studied a lot of Roma music in Europe, and you're right. When I went to school in Holland in Rotterdam, I did my undergraduate there.
For
Uh,
upright bass?
yeah, in a jazz department. I started actually in New Orleans and did an exchange program there to study with a particular bass teacher, Hein van de Gein, and then graduated from there. Um, but I started playing with, a local band, none of which were Roma, but we with an interest in Eastern European folk music, of various sorts. And we all graduated at the same time. The band was called the Balcony Players.
Hmm.
So we bought, and as you do when you graduate college with a bunch of hippies, you buy a 1983 ambulance and you hit the road. So we were on tour the first time for about a year straight, mostly through Eastern Europe, and just kind of trying to find as much music as possible. We visit a lot of Roma villages, try to do some social exchange
And so where
things.
was that? Was like Roma villages in Romania or Serbia,
Uh,
Hungary?
I mean, all over. Our trip was Holland to Istanbul and in a circle kind of thing.
Okay.
So, but the most of our time we spent, let's say, in Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, um, and then as well, like Kosovo. We met some amazing people that have a project called Balkan Sunflowers,
Hmm.
that's trying to help the Roma people there, um, and that connection actually brought me back to the Balkans last winter, after almost 10 years of not not seeing them. So, through a different program called One Beat.
So is that when you were exposed to Romani music in general?
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
first in Holland and then on
First
the
in
travel.
Holland, just listening to records. I think the first time I heard, well, maybe even before I heard records, there was a separate band that didn't exist for very long, of mostly brass musicians, and they said, "Hey, we're gonna have a Balkan brass band or something. You want to play bass? We want you to play bass in it." But I had never heard this music before, and they didn't have charts at all, basically. And it's all the songs were in 9, 13, 11,
Yep.
and they just said, they had a printed out a word sheet with the bass notes, just like E, D, E, whatever, and they just follow the melody, and I'm like thinking, I'm looking at them like they're crazy because it's, and I'm like, I had never heard this before in my life. I can't figure it's all. I never played in these kind of meters. I'm like, but you learn.
It could be challenging. Yeah. Was there? I remember there was a. I think those guys were from Holland. Was is the band Farmers Market? They played lots of Romani music in a kind fusiony
Yeah.
jazz approach. But were they from Holland? Are
I
you
don't.
familiar with those
I
guys?
am familiar. I don't know where they're from. I think doesn't Petr Ralchev play with them?
I think as a guest.
Okay.
I don't think he was a member of the band or
Right,
anything.
because
But
I
yeah,
did get to play with Petar last, might have been last summer or the summer before, in a residency, which was amazing. And he mentioned them like, oh yeah, I know this band, Farmers Market. I played with him,
yeah.
but I don't
Their
know
bass
too
player. I
much about
forgot
them.
his name, but he was slapping a little bit. So um, they toured U.S. like 15 years ago or something. Um, so were you slapping during that times, like when you were playing mostly Romani and Eastern European music?
Yeah, for sure. And so at the time when we were traveling, our drummer was still, he was the only one who didn't graduate at the same time. So we were drummerless for that tour. So I was providing a lot of the percussion. And
Nice.
we spent a lot of time busking on the streets and playing in whatever kind of situations. So, and also because a lot of the folk music is relatively simple for the bass, I like to find different ways of challenging myself. So even if it's like a tune in D, um, and if my left hand is free because I'm playing open strings, I can I try to like fill up different space with the percussion on the bass, because it's there's this is a huge instrument. There's so much range. There's so much potential. We basically have a giant cajon with strings.
Yes, like I think that Adam Ben Ezra is one of the guys that it's using that percussiveness of the upright bass very nicely.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I haven't heard him playing slap, uh, but we did like one workshop together. Both of us were teachers in Serbia, and like super nice guy, very excellent musician, and he was demonstrating some of his unique technique.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so do you mind like playing something in that style, like with slap, like and like odd time signature,
Yeah,
whatever comes to your mind?
Sure. So I can talk a little bit. Honestly, without thinking of it, the first piece, little improvisation that I did was a 9. So if people want to go look back at that later on, they can follow along. Um, I like odd meters, just, and that's the one thing that I think drew me to a lot of the Balkan music. Is the different um, rhythmic variation, and I think I mentioned also before I started playing drums for 1 year before I started playing bass. So kind of my introduction to music was more from a rhythmic approach, and I think that then translated down to all of this. Um, so, uh, for example, with my own slapping technique, I find that it allows you to subdivide the beats and then internalize odd meters better. Because if I'm doing a 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or at least you have the subdivision of every note, so you're kind of like you make yourself accountable. Versus if you're, I don't know, if you're just playing, you might be, if you're not really feeling the beat, you might be more likely to kind of lose the beat or get off or something. So this allows you to kind of, and then if you're practicing, you can change the subdivisions if you have a metronome going. I don't have one close, but um, something like this.
All right, I'm ready. I want to learn a lick. What do you
Okay,
want to
cool.
show me?
Um, so um, going back to like something in 9, because I like playing in 9. Um, um, it's almost more of like, feels like an electric funk bass line or something like this, but a 9. But I don't know, people might enjoy it. So. So in this way, you have a lot of you have both the right hand to fill up the space, but also left hand hammer-ons, which allows for different kind of flexibility and different rhythmic variation during the slap.
That sounds great. So that's in 9/4, right?
Yes.
Kind of right.
Yeah.
I
One,
kind of
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Doom, chick, doody, chick, dook, tick, dunk. Doom, chick, doody, chick, dook, tick, daka, ding, doom, chick, doody, chick, dogo, chick, doom, chick, doody, daka, tick, daka, ding, doom.
okay. It's something that when you say 9, I'm usually familiar with like Balkan 9, like the groove, like
Yeah.
that type of thing, which would slap would be, I guess, uh, like
Mm-hmm.
if people are interested in 9/8 in Balkan style, good song for that is Opa Opa, Serbian song, and it's It's a nine, and so on. But let's focus on 9/4 and this weird technique that I don't know how to play.
We can do.
So,
We can talk a bit about both. We can also talk about the 9/8 if you want.
yeah,
Uh,
let's do that later. Like
okay.
let's at least learn something. People, I'm not sure if you guys can hear my bass at all because my microphone is not working. And but I'm not going to be able even to do this with these headphones. So I will. Hopefully, you're going to be able to hear me. I have to take this out off. So let's go step by step. Can you show me like first? I
Hmm.
don't know the line.
Uh, I wonder maybe I should play the line without slapping just to get the line.
Okay.
So,
Is that in E minor or B? What is it?
B minor.
It's in B minor. Okay, but it ends on E.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's so these are the notes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So okay.
I'm not sure if you guys can hear me, but notes are uh, B, A, B, D, E, G, D, E.
Yeah.
So, so grab your basses and and learn this cool line. What did you say? It's kind of like a funk bass guitar type of thing.
I mean, I guess so. I think of that because of the hammer-ons,
Okay.
which wouldn't be necessarily so
Camerons could be
typical.
like used in so many cool ways. Like in the previous episode with Marshall Wilborn, he was using it in bluegrass very nicely. I was very impressed. He showed us one of his solos.
Oh, cool.
But let's focus on this. Like before I spaced out. So it's in 9/4,
Hmm.
and all right. So I got the notes. So how do you? I'm gonna try like to play it with your slap style. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna succeed with that, but I'll do my best.
Okay, and for the people who are wondering, my slap style, I developed it as a way of um, trying to trying to stay as close to like normal, like I guess you would say jazz playing, jazz pizzicato position. It's where my right fingers don't move out of position like this or something. So I just take my thumb and move it on top of the string that I'm already attacking. So in this case, that's the basic motion. So um, first half, just that. You want to try,
Sure.
Djordje?
So it's um so you do with this finger or middle finger?
I exchanged them for this purpose. For now, we do the middle finger.
Okay, it's so weird having a thumb here. Okay, I'm gonna embarrass myself, but it doesn't matter. You have to get embarrassed in order to learn something. So
Sure.
right.
Exactly.
So all right, let me do that for a little bit.
That's great.
It's so weird. Like I mean, I would play like so I would play,
Hmm.
but this is cool.
That's it, though. Yeah. And I mean, I do want to emphasize that like everyone's slap technique, I think, is very personal and individual, and it's maybe more about the vocabulary. So if you can figure out a way of doing it in your own style, go for it. You know.
It's
Um,
absolutely individual, and yours is very individual. But I something that I always appreciated the most with music in general is uniqueness. I want to hear musicians that have their own sound, their
mm-hmm.
own voice, their own technique. I don't care about if it's polished or not polished. If there's something special, that's where I'm drawn to. Not like for people that are just trying to copy somebody. All
Yeah,
right, I think
honestly,
let
that's
me just repeat this first part
yeah.
just to make sure that I didn't forget it. Okay.
Cool.
I would appreciate if you guys can tell me, the audience, if you guys tell me how you hear my bass, because as I said, I don't have my microphone, so it probably sounds like I'm playing Guitar Hero or something. But so I apologize for that. I'm gonna figure that out like for next time. But for now, this is it, and I really want to learn, so I don't care. Okay, so let's go. So we got 4 beats down, so we have 5 more to go.
Yeah, essentially, you could think of it as a 4-beat phrase and a 5-beat phrase, or even a
Okay.
4-beat phrase, another 4-beat phrase, and a rest.
Okay.
That's kind of what it is. Um,
So show me
so
last 5 beats.
so let me for myself. Oh, so then from there.
Got it.
So that I
And
don't
you're slapping with a thumb over there, or you're slapping with a palm?
palm. Actually,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
even use my thumb on the second half of that.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's gonna be easier for me. Okay, so like that.
Mm-hmm.
Am I using the right? I mean, this is kind of like the way I would play my own thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
The only
so
difference for me personally is my hand would be lower on the instrument.
and to be honest about that, mine too. But I'm trying like for people like to see
Yeah,
it.
to
If I
see
play
it,
it here,
sure, I
they're not
know.
gonna see it. So it's a little harder for me to play all the way here.
Uh-huh.
But I'm feeling that that's gonna be more helpful,
Sure.
like for people like
See it.
to actually learn something. So let me just try that. Mm. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So do you mind like playing the whole thing once?
Uh, should I include the rest at the end or fill the space at
Well,
the end?
let me like leave it like that just to make
Okay.
sure that I got it.
Okay.
Ah, I'll
Mm-hmm.
never get used to that. I really have to practice. But you gave me something like to think about. All right. So did I get it right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. So can you show me the? You said you wanted to fill up the last half note.
Yeah, exactly. I
Okay.
mean, you can do even if you don't fill it up, you can just to yourself just so that it's stay true to the 9. You can voice it like ta 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 ta. So you could, if you want to fill it in with slap, I would use a double thumb and then palm slap at the very end.
Oh, okay.
Does that
So
make sense?
repeat. Like your video kind of froze for a second. Can you
Okay.
just show me the very end?
Yeah.
So
So you're hammering on the E,
okay.
and then a double thumb and palm slap.
Uh, uh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So that will be. Uh, oh, so those will all be 8 notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I felt that you like. I might be wrong, but did you like before that? Like, did you play it once, like with like just 16th notes, like that
Uh,
at the very end, or not?
just in the last 10 minutes? No.
Okay, so let me do the end. All right, I'm not sure if I'm gonna get this. So it's all right, so that's extra strange. Okay, so um, oh, okay, so it's helpful if I do it like with the middle finger then. Okay, let me try that. Ah, I did just two. I'm supposed to be three. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Ah, um, oh, double thumb is
Let me
kind of tricky.
just play through the second half.
Aha, got it. So, kind of to pretend that we are playing in 5/4, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but like two thumbs, not like I played this.
Yeah. Two thumbs
You
because
see,
then
that's more natural for me.
what is
Ah,
what is more natural for you?
I think I have to practice that. Like I can do this, but it's
Yeah, the reason that I do the double thumb is just so that I land on the palm. The palm leads you to start the next slap. You know.
okay. You got it?
Yeah.
Uh, okay, let me see if I can do the whole thing. Oh man, it's not easy. It's like it's just it's not like playing a different instrument, but it's the technique that I never
I
used.
know
I never
exactly.
used thumbs
It's
like
like
that.
telling me to play my bass left-handed or something like that.
Exactly. That's how I feel right now. I wonder if anyone else like tried to play this line. Martin explained it like perfectly, so I would like to hear your comments, and also if you have any questions. So uh,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
I have to practice to make it like smooth and actually really funky.
Should I play it for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
And from there you can add all kind of variations.
Cool.
That's the groove. So I'll just play around with it a little bit.
Go ahead. I'm gonna leave my bass. Let me actually solo you. So until I do this.
Mm-hmm. I maybe fucked that up. Sorry, didn't say that word. I don't know. Anyway.
Man, it's great. It's very unique, very unique. I'm impressed. Um, I would like to hear. All right, so I uked in my car, tried it, and she needs a little more practice. We all do. You opened um, you opened my mind, and I hope I'm gonna be able to go into that direction a little bit more. We got like lots of cool comments about it, so
Nice.
that's great. Kevin Smith said that never seen this style before. Very cool. It is very cool. And um, what I wanted to ask you, like your style always reminded me on a little bit on tabla playing. Was that an inspiration at all, like Indian music and tabla style?
For sure, that was like, um, you know, uh, well, during in high school, I was exposed to Indian music, and it was something I really wanted to learn. At the time, someone told me that like it would be impossible unless you spent like 15 hours a day for the rest of your life, basically, which is almost true. But later, I realized I find some of my friends learning tabla and they making progress, so it's not entirely true, but it's difficult. It's like, I mean, like all music, it's infinite. So you'll never. I mean, okay, there are masters, but really you're never a master. You're always at like center of infinity in terms of improvement because you can always improve. So, but yeah, it was a goal of mine to like learn some of this tablet vocabulary on slap bass. And over the years, as I learned a little bit more, I found the instrument kanjira. Are you familiar with this instrument?
I am, but I,
It's
I
for those who are
haven't
not.
played it.
It's a small frame drum.
Do you have
That's
it?
I have one actually. I
Okay.
cannot. I won't. Um, so this is the instrument. Traditionally, it's made with lizard skin on the head, wood, and one jingle. This is a Remo version, so there's a plastic head, but it works, you know. This instrument I found pretty cheap on the internet, so I just thought it would be good to have because a lot of people told me when I was interested in learning Indian music that my slapping technique really kind of would translate well to Kanjira. Um, and while it's somewhat true, I can't say that I've really learned to play this instrument. The 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 thing about it though being that it's all right hand technique and left hand adjusts the pitch. So as you tighten the drum with your fingers, so in that same way, we bass players we adjust the pitch with our left hand, and the right hand is the is the attack. Um, and also in this drum, the main difference being in with Indian technique, they call it the split hand technique, where they split the hand down the middle between the middle and index finger. The difference in my technique, because I didn't know anything about Indian music when I started my slap technique, so I told myself that maybe my pointer finger, index finger, would be the actual pivot point as a goal for myself. So if I would practice at home for a long time, I was just trying to keep the first finger more or less stable and use my thumb and other three fingers as the attack. So when I translate it to the bass, the first finger's not doing too much. But trying to get that steady pulse, I would practice things like trying to alternate the accents. As a triplet, so it's like sometimes accents on the thumb, sometimes accents on the palm. That way it's a little bit more controlled than just like randomly trying to move your hand as much as possible. What was I gonna say?
So is that something that you would recommend, like, for people to practice, just like, producing those, like, I guess 16th notes, like, like, because I'm noticing that your hand is really loose, your wrist is very loose, very relaxed, which should always be the goal, like whenever you're playing any kind of slap, because you should never be stiff.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially for this technique, I guess.
Yeah, and I think
I
that's what I've never really had any problems with my right hand. Bass is such a physical instrument, but this is
absolutely,
for often different unusual techniques can lead to different kind of pains or something like this. But I haven't had any problem with this, which is good. And I think it comes from trying to make it as relaxed as possible. And this said, so I take a lot of influence from percussionists in general. Indian percussionists, but also Middle Eastern percussionists. I have friends in Turkey that are playing frame drum or playing darbuka or something, or tabla. And I mean, it's incredible what they do. And it's like that, it's so humbling for me, because if I think, I can do something fast, then I look at them, or I look at Indian players playing this instrument. It's insane, and it's essentially
insane. Yeah, I know.
the same thing. And if you see it live, it's also different than seeing it on the internet, because you realize just how powerful. It's not that they're doing it quiet.
Yeah. It's all kinds of stuff.
It's intense. Every single note is like a machine gun. And they're going twice as fast as I am and doing crazy vocabulary.
It's like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, I played a little bit of Indian music a long time ago when I started learning, ragas and all that. So, but it was, I wouldn't say it was a little bit too much, but I kind of like wanted to specialize more in Arabic music as far as Eastern music goes, and that's where I was drawn to. And like maqams, as we were talking before. One question that it's not related to bass, but it is related to kanjira. What would you say? Is there a big difference between Arabic rik and Indian kanjira?
Yeah.
There is? Okay. As far as technique goes, or as far as the 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 instrument?
I love the Rick, and I tried to learn this also as just because
Okay.
I'm such a fan of it. But both, the similarities being the extensive amount of rhythmic vocabulary that's potential on it, but in some ways, Rick has more variation in terms of. I would say in terms of dynamics and variation, because you can play it. You can play it really loud, or you can play it in a soft position, where it's like essentially the cymbals are somewhat closed. And Kanjira, it only has one. It's only this one sound, which
Okay.
Indian musicians, they can play
Crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they can play anything on this one thing, and they have it is enough. It's so simple, yet yet so versatile. But yeah, anyway.
It, but it's like, I mean, percussion instruments in that part of the world, it's like it's amazing. I mean, it's just like you. I feel like I could study that like for 3 lives and then just be a beginning
Oh
beginner.
yeah, you're totally right.
It's
So
it's
some names
amazing.
for people to check out. People who I like: Zohar Fresco. He's an Israeli percussionist who's, you know, taken a lot of this Indian vocabulary and applied it to Middle Eastern frame drum. Um, some of his stuff is a little. I mean, it's like a computer who's playing, and it's extreme. But if you want to study a little bit of, if I could get like 5% of all that he's doing, it would be a huge improvement. Another one, great master is Misrili Ahmed, who's a darbuka player in and master in Turkey, and I have a lot of good friends who have studied underneath him. He's also kind of reinvented the instrument and taken a lot of Indian vocabulary to the darbuka. So
it's I think there's a special connection between like Indian and Arabic percussions, and but I would say especially Indian, and that could be applied to slap. I
mm-hmm.
had like kind of like experience that I would like to share with you. Like a few years ago, it might be like even 10 years ago or so. Like I was going annually to one music camp in California, like a secret music camp where you could you had to be invited, like it's in the middle of a forest and the music was going on like 24/7, mostly world music, mostly lots of Romani music, lots of flamenco, lots of like some bluegrass as well, but it was mostly world music stuff. And everybody, you could always hear somebody jamming even at 5, 6, 7 in the morning. And so it was music kind of 24/7, and it's going on, it's still going on like for 2 weeks maybe, I think, like each year. um, but over there I was jamming with one percussionist who studied and spent lots of time in India, and the ideas that he put in my head, like for slap style, were really really impressive. I was like, wow, this guy's opening my mind into all these crazy grooves and crazy rhythms that I was aware of, but I was not using them in my own style of playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was stoked on that. And then when I found you, I was like, oh, this guy applied it with a different slap technique, and then like used the kind of like a similar ideas. So that's why I wanted to mention that your style always reminded me on like some tabla players. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I was not wrong.
No,
um,
indeed.
so I would like to hear you play some more. Like,
Can
do you
I?
want to play your own
Well,
instrument?
I was
You
gonna
already
say,
do?
do you wanna? I can show you just since we're in this kind of like crazy slap world. I can show these two brief Instagram clips, and
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah,
if
yeah, please
people
do.
if people want to find me on Instagram at the moment, that's the most, you know, place where I'm the most active.
Yep.
Um,
Like, let me just do this. So this is Martin's Instagram.
so the
And all the links are actually below the video, so check out, I put like posted all his social handles, so you can find him on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And so it's
I'm gonna
gonna be helpful. Check out the
I
links
guess
below.
I can I guess my audio will still be active, but just to explain a little bit beforehand, the first thing that I want to show, which is actually different than the one that I have queued, but it's the other one, but I'll fix that. Um, is uh, an excerpt from a performance I did on one of my senior recital at the University of New Orleans, my master's recital, together with a violinist, Ian Cook, who's from New Orleans. He really specializes in Greek and klezmer and like modal music in general. An incredible violinist. But we're doing one of his compositions that's again in 9. It's the theme of the day. But I'm using ankle bells to keep time, and it's just a clip. It's like the let's say the climax of the song. Um, but people can get a little awareness or insight into how this can be applied when playing with other people. So
Is that a one?
yeah.
All right, let's do that.
Should be able to hear it.
I don't hear any audio. I'm not sure if you guys are hearing that.
Ah. Sorry, you don't hear any audio?
No, I think you have to allow audio as well.
Wait, sorry, let me do this one more time.
All right, no problem. All right, guys, until Martin gets ready for this, I would like to mention like that all the links for my links and Artist Lab based links and Martin links are below the video. And if you're watching this later on, make sure to subscribe. Like subscribe button should be around here somewhere. Very important. Means a lot to me. And I also put like a couple of donation links if you want to support us. These slap streams, this crazy project for opening our minds in for the slap based world. So there's a Venmo and PayPal, and there's Patreon. There's my Patreon. So please check it out over there. I got like a few extra Patreons since last time. Thanks a lot for that. Thanks a lot for the support. And I believe that Martin is ready. So let's add this particular
Let me know if it's working.
video. It's cool, but I would say this was in 9/8, right? It was like more
Yeah,
like a Balkan style.
for sure.
Cool. And what did you say that it was the name of the violin player?
Ian Cook.
Ian Cook. Okay.
Yeah, incredible.
And you mentioned that you wanted to play something else from your Instagram page. Is that something that you wanted to
Yeah,
do right now or later
exactly.
on?
So we can do that right now since we're on it.
Okay.
Another similar example of like some kind of crazy extreme slapping. It's with a musical partner named Ira Echo. We actually have a duo called the Cosmic String Duo. He's also a
Mm.
violinist. And we released an album, I think 2 years ago now. But people can find that on any streaming platform or something. The album's called Valley View. But here is a clip from actually a Bartok piece. It's one of his, I mean, most famous as Bartok piece. You could otherwise say it's a Transylvanian folk song, but it's one of his Romanian dances, the fifth movement called Merentel. And so we do an arrangement kind of as a, a finale, let's say, also. Um, and if this works, I'm gonna have this play, and I'm gonna run to the bathroom.
All right, let's do this.
Keep talking.
Oh, okay. So this repeats. It's amazing. I love your I love your slapping style. I played lots of like odd time signatures with my old band Fish Tank Ensemble, and I always loved playing that. But I never used the thumb. So I should incorporate that more. And I have a question for you as far as that technique goes. How low your strings have to be in order like to produce that sound in particular?
Um, uh, Sorry, I just kind of got back. I don't know if I caught all of your.
Yeah, you did. I was, like, how low your strings have to be in order like to produce the sound with the thumb?
Well, it's everyone's personal preference, but I cannot. I would say that my strings have a medium low action, but um, I I'm limited basically by the slapping on how low I can have my action, and I never wanted to have super low, you know, to the strings. It almost feels like cheating sometimes if I play other bass players' instruments. Um, but I can my E string I can basically fit my fingers underneath. G string is about half of that. I think I want to say it's 4 or 5 millimeters on top and 7 millimeters on the bottom or something like this. To be specific. But yeah, it's one thing also to note that I use steel strings, which a lot of people slapping, they use gut strings, which is it's just great for slapping. It's it's a joy to play slap bass on gut strings. Um, but
I use also steel, so for me it was always there's something about the quality of the tone and intonation that I they always preferred
mhm.
with steel strings. But if I play like old school New Orleans music, I do like playing like a high action, and then like the gut strings. You get that like real sound.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's a different sound for sure.
yeah.
Um, but I do so much arco playing, which I haven't really demonstrated any of, but that I I'll say I'm partial to the sound of steel strings with the arco bass.
So what strings are you playing? Since we were talking about strings.
I've got Tomastix spiral core. That's all I've ever used basically. Um, I use the Vikes, the light gauge,
Hmm.
with a heavy or a medium gauge on the bottom. Um, but it's kind of, I find that works on this instrument. I have two other instruments that are plywood, like a K bass, um, that it it takes to the medium tension strings just fine, and it almost feels the same. And I really that's still a total mystery to me how it can almost it's like has the same string length, the higher tension strings, actions about the same, and it's almost easier to play or the same as the space with lower tension strings.
Interesting. So on that bass, you have light gauge. Is that what you said?
Hmm.
All four strings.
With a medium gauge on the E.
Ah, on the E. Oh, okay, but they're all spiral core.
Hmm.
And on other basses, you have a regular medium
Hmm.
orchestra spiral core. Okay.
Hmm.
I played spiral core. I always have spiral core on my bass or like something similar, always from Tomastic. Those are
Hmm.
definitely my favorites. Um, so let's do. You said that you wanted to demonstrate something with your arco playing. Do you want to do that now?
Sure. I wonder if I could. Maybe now would be a good time to introduce my other little bass.
Let's do that.
Um, and I'll apologize if I can't get the sound working now, but it's been spent all day yesterday trying to figure out live streaming sound, and it's
Yeah, we just
and
want to be musicians. We just want to play and go on tour and play shows, but we have to do all this,
if
you
anyone
know,
has a
stuff.
suggestion on how to uh, send the audio directly from a DAW like Ableton directly to the live stream without uh, split rerouting the audio, because then if you reroute the audio you have some latency in your head, so while still monitoring the audio from your audio interface um, directly, that's been the trouble.
All
But
right. If you
anyway.
guys have any suggestion, like write it down in the live chat. We're gonna check it out. So we're getting ready for the bass that Martin actually made himself. It's his travel bass. As he said, he made two basses. I think that the third one is in the works, and he might start selling like some of those. So we'll see um, where he's at. All right, he's getting ready. I can see him. I really appreciate all of you being here. Please share this link with any other bass players that you think that might be interested in this particular style. And the whole point of the Slapstream for myself was like to open up um, different ways of playing. You know, I don't want, we have like lots of rockabilly people following the channel, but that's like one particular style, and then this is completely something different. So I'm trying like to present different style like in each episode, being that like bluegrass or jazz or swing or more rock or more experimental, or I would say like more Indian and world music and Romani, like with Martin. But all of these different techniques could be applied in any music style. So there's no limits. So just try to find your own voice and do that. All right, Martin is almost ready. Um, if you haven't hit subscribe, please hit subscribe. If you haven't
This is. Can you?
as well, and it's for some reason it helps YouTube algorithm. So do that and check out the donation links down below. All right, I think that Martin is ready. So
Um. Okay. Can you? Can you hear this?
yes, I can hear you. It might have to be if you can volume a little bit down, recording a little.
Is that any better?
Perfect. Excellent.
Okay, so just to and you can still hear me talking.
Yes.
Cool. Wow, it works. So to explain to people a little bit about this bass, I started. I feel like I can. Use the aperture a bit on the camera. It's a little bright, but whatever. Yeah, I do. Obviously, I talked before about touring a lot and a lot through Eastern Europe, and everyone who's a bass player knows how difficult it is to tour with a double bass. So, almost my life as a bass player, I've been kind of exploring different electric upright basses and different travel basses that could serve that purpose. It was actually after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. I bought, because I couldn't take my bass to Houston when we evacuated, I bought a weird-looking Chinese electric upright bass that some other people call a Picasso bass, because it's almost an abstract figure-8 shape. And it's a terrible instrument, but at the time, I'd only been playing for a year or two, and that kind of seeing how it, because it was fully electric, it didn't really matter about the shape or of the instrument. So my mind started wandering, and I started trying to design all kind of crazy shaped whatever instruments with different ideas. None of it really were ever built. But it was only years later when I started traveling and I moved to Europe, and I took this bass with me behind you. And later it broke on a flight. I had 2 instruments break on flights. So, I was searching for the perfect travel bass. I thought there was a couple on the market that I thought would serve the purpose, but they were expensive. And then when I finally tried them, I was just really disappointed. So, there was actually one instrument I found in Germany and that I thought would be perfect, and I bought it. But it was still, there was no way it would collapse in size. It was still kind of long, but skinny body like this one. And I thought that I would be able to chop it in half and do weird stuff with it. But my luthier suggested that it would actually be easier to build a new instrument than trying to fix that one. So, but then I looked at him with doggy eyes, and he was like, nope, I do not build instruments. So then I started to design and make my own. The special thing about this one is that so the neck is removable, everything is removable. It comes apart in several different pieces, and it fits. Oops. And that's the case for it. So when I travel, it's something like a little bit bigger than, like a very thick violin case, thick viola case, maybe something closer to a trombone. This case I also made myself, so it doesn't look so good, but anyway. But I think it sounds good because it has an acoustic body. It has all the features that an acoustic bass would have, like the essence of the instrument, like the sound post and the bass bar and the things that make the bass vibrate, that it has. It's just only quieter. So I use a pickup. I've been using a Schertler Stat B pickup, and lately I've been combining it with like a DPA or something for a bit more natural sound. I like hearing a bit more of the ambient sound around it.
There's reverb and everything. So if you cannot do it, don't worry about it. It sounds fine.
I know. What I think, you hearing a sound like that's kind of purr. I don't know. I was trying to work with it yesterday, and because there's a basically continuous loop of audio cables through the camera and back into the computer and out, it's kind of, there's no way around getting it a good sound.
Don't worry about it. Go ahead.
Is that better?
Good. Go ahead.
Okay, so with all that said, I've been trying to, more or less develop a way of kind of playing some electronic looping music and things like people do, which I've yet to really make any compositions with, because I'd spend too much time trying to figure out how to route the cables and troubleshoot the things that are not working. But I'm gonna I'll just play something improvised again now, and just kind of show you an idea of what I'm working with. For the people who are asking, this is not part of the bass, but this is a MIDI controller that a friend of mine built for me in Amsterdam. He calls it the Power Thumb, and you can look him up. His name is Stefan Mareidel. But it's just a MIDI controller, so it only affects controls on to the computer. It doesn't have any direct control of the sound of the instrument. The computer itself is doing processing. And then also for people to know that nothing is like pre-recorded. It's all theoretically sounds of the bass, which is a goal. Hmm.
Cool, man. I love what you're doing. Do you incorporate like clap as well, like when you do like
Yeah,
looping?
a little bit, not as much. I'm gonna switch back. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. That's why I got caught up.
You know, but everybody loved it. You know, the as the monk like as a killer, and James, that dude in the back is freaking out bad. I assume you mean your cello case.
Yep, exactly.
Is that a cello case?
It is a cello case.
Okay. Well,
It's funny. I have like a delay on my voice or something. Anyway, I'm gonna switch back to normal audio and we can continue from there. Is that cool?
Okay, cool. Let's do that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's like we haven't had any loopers before. I always wanted to get into looping the bass, and I think it gives lots of opportunities when you play slap and when you play like percussions on the side and pizzicato and melodic lines with the bow. It could be, it could create some uh, really cool sounds. So and I would like to hear like what do you guys think about Martin's handmade and self-made bass. I was never a fan like of like those like travel basses, but this one seems fun to play. I would like to try it when I'm next time in New Orleans. And all right, Martin is back with his uh, real bass. I don't want to say that the other one is not real. Can we hear you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Well, your
You can.
volume is a little bit low now.
Um,
If you can push it up, it'll be cool. If not, I
sure.
think we can hear you. If you
Like
guys have any
this.
comments about a volume, let me know. Let us know.
And switch back to.
Yeah, looping is like very could be very creative and could open up like for different sounds and everything. Um, so what do you prefer to play? What do you prefer like to play the travel bass or the big bass?
Um. Well, I guess I still prefer the big bass.
Okay.
There's nothing. I try to get the travel bass as close as possible to the feel in terms
Hmm.
of setup and everything of my big bass, but there's just it will never be possible to duplicate it entirely. And I'm trying to have something that I can fit in the overhead of a plane.
Yes,
I'm
like
trying to
we
have
all
something
do.
that's acoustic that can fit in the overhead of the plane. So
Have you ever tried like the other like travel bases like a Colstein or Eminence?
yeah,
Did you like them?
um, I had problems with both. The Kolstein probably felt the most like like a or more like a bass. I mean, kind of similar to mine. It's a lot heavier. It's a lot bigger. There's
Hmm.
no fitting the Kolstein in an overhead.
Okay.
They have a removable neck option, but then a flight case for it, and they say it's like people don't even opt for the removable neck option because you anyway need a flight case, and then it's just more setup kind of stuff.
Okay, so yours kind of make more sense like for flying with the base.
Yeah,
You should. So
that's
if you decide like to make those bases like available for other people to purchase, like where should they find it? Like your Instagram, or do you have a website or something?
it would be. I'll announce it for sure, but yeah, on my website or on my Instagram, they can follow both.
Okay, all right. So guys, if you're interested in these bases, follow
I'm
Martin. All the links are below.
luckily with quarantine and COVID, I've had time to like troubleshoot things because the last two instruments, both of them, I was a rush to finish before tour,
Mm.
and like so like this instrument just behind me, I didn't finish it before tour started. It was the night before I was sewing the case. enough to like where the case was like, okay, there's enough stitching on it that it should last, should hold it. The base had been varnished like a few days before. I didn't even have time to like do the final setup and put the strings on it. So I
Oh,
brought some tools. It was in Colombia. Was the tour, and I brought tools to finish it in Colombia, um, and had, I don't know, some catastrophic failures
oh my.
there. And we were in a village, like it was a residency and like totally remote, so that we could be isolated from society, in the jungle. And I was there isolated from society in a jungle with a broken bass that I had to fix,
Oh,
which
oh.
I did fix it, but it was like I had to use like a rain gutter, and like a stainless steel spatula as like a metal brace because I had no tools. There's like nothing available to me.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
but
Yeah, we all
if
been there, like with problems like with flying and like bases, breaking up on tour. It's not a good feeling,
yeah, for sure.
especially not in Colombia. In Colombia, have you played like a little bit of Colombian music or your own thing?
It was both. The residency was a program called One Beat, which is it's a great program. Everyone should research it, but it's really community oriented kind of culture exchange program. So we had, I think, about 15 people in total, maybe 4 or 5 Americans, and the rest were Colombians and 2 or 3 Venezuelans.
Mm.
But yeah, I formed a trio with. I learned so much about Colombian music when I was there. It was 1 month long, and I actually formed a trio, with a Colombian tiple player, which is kind of like a small guitar with triple strings, and a Venezuelan mandolin player. And we recorded an album then, and I used my travel bass on the album. It sounds good. We never did finish or release it, but that's kind of still the plan.
So one of these days, like
Yeah.
people should follow you, and then they're gonna find out when your music gonna be released. One thing that I wanted to ask you about your gear. We talked about your basses. We talked about your strings.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked about your amps and um, the effects and pedals. So what else are you using besides? What kind of amp are you using? And I would like you to talk about your effects as well.
Sure. Well, the as far as amps, I'm not. I do play a lot acoustically, and it's not like my forte to know about it. I, for the longest time, used an acoustic image as my main amp, but uh, lately I'm kind of growing out of it. Um, Sound wise, it doesn't really carry the low end, so I have just one of the cheaper Ampeg large bass amps. I don't even know the brand or the specific model, and that's for bigger gigs. That's fine. And then for touring though, which I think is kind of remarkable, a combination with my travel bass. It's the Phil Jones Double Four, um, and that's, I think, this basically the smallest bass amp on the market. It has two 4-inch speakers, which is, you know, kind of crazy, but it's powerful enough that I can play gigs with it, smaller shows, small gigs with it. Um, and it allows me, it can run on a laptop battery. So if I have an external battery, I don't even need to plug it in. So if I want to perform whatever in the middle of the woods somewhere, I can. Uh, and it allows me to pick up gigs on the road if I'm traveling with my travel bass, because the travel bass, it has a small acoustic sound, but it's not meant for performing acoustically. And if I was on the road traveling somewhere, and I needed to find an amp for just a one background music gig or something, anything, just to make some money, then it would be mean that I would have to, oh yeah, well, Joe has an amp. You have to take a taxi to Joe's house, pick up the amp, and then get your way across town to get to the gig, and then figure out a way to get the amp back to him. And it's just just a general pain. So having the ability to take my own amp with me, it adds a little bit of weight to my suitcase, but I just literally throw it in the suitcase, and I'm totally independent.
Like we had a question or request that like you play some Colombian inspired bass. You have can you do that? Were you studying that as well?
Um, m- Maybe I can show another Instagram clip or something of this trio. It makes
Sure,
more sense than playing just solo bass lines, I think.
sure. Okay. So
So I think that should be so cute.
just make sure to turn on the audio.
Let's see if it works. I've
Okay.
also don't remember what piece this is, but this was the band. So anyway,
I remember seeing actually that clip when you posted on your Facebook. I remember that, I was like, oh, he's having fun down there.
for sure. So you know, please correct me if anyone knows better. I'm bad at like names and titles of rhythms, but I think that was called joropo, the rhythm, um, which is mm, I'm not gonna be the one to make a fool of myself and explain Colombian and Venezuelan music, but at least it was something really interesting for me because um, there's there's a lot of you don't the bass player doesn't even play the one. It's a lot of 2/3. If something is in 12, let's say, or 6 or 12, 1 2 3 1 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3. 1 1 1 1 1.
Have you come across any slap bass players over there for
Um,
Colombian music?
no, and you know, upright bass in South America is kind of rare. I find so there's more electric bass players that would traditionally be playing this music.
I remember hearing like some of the recordings from Cachao and that he was
Sure.
slapping.
Yeah, for sure.
And Cachao Lopez, if you guys are not familiar with him, you should be. Um, so I remember hearing some of his slap stuff, and then I researched it. That was like maybe 12, 13 years ago when I spent some time like researching Latin music in general. So Cachao is the guy for that style for sure. Um, but you do use like slap when you play that style.
Yeah, I do. I think it. I mean, that's. I don't think it's traditional, and that's like my own. That would be my added touch, but I think it's a great way to add, you know, the percussive element to it, and for myself to keep the beat, because some of the stuff that they're doing is really uh, it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah,
We
you can
spend a
get
lot of time
lost.
on the Pacific coast, and there's just some the way they feel the beat, it's like it's incredible. It's something I never really experienced before. You know.
It's amazing. It's just like you have to be into it, and you kind of almost have to have that in your DNA, like to play it right. It's something really cool. I always admired, especially Colombian musicians,
Mm-hmm.
or Latin musicians in general. Um, and I wanted to ask you, like, since you live in New Orleans, which is kind of like a music mecca in U.S. And you have like you play a lot, or at least you did before the COVID-19 situation. And so I wanted to ask you, how do you get gigs? What would be your advice, like for people uh, that live in New Orleans that would like to get gigs and that join bands or start touring?
Um, hmm. God, I'm not a great person to answer that. Because you know, I'm compared to a lot of my colleagues, I don't play that much, and I never really wanted to necessarily. Uh, I have other bass player friends of mine that I went to high school with that they'll easily be playing 7 nights a week, if not you know 10 shows a week or more. Um, and I just never desired to do that. And part of it is like one trying to retain music as something that I love to do and not really just a job. So it's been a hard balance because I probably could be making a better living if I was out there gigging 10 days a week, but then maybe I wouldn't like music as much. So I try to just kind of sit patiently for and hold my time for better paying things, that come around, uh, which has worked so far. It's kept me alive. Um, I don't know. During the start of COVID, um, or actually it was before COVID that I I told myself I wasn't I wanted to stop uh, working as necessarily as a full time musician and try to make try to make some kind of transitional shift, and that's what I'm currently in, and that's what the entire world is currently in, ironically. Um, so I don't know. We're all just trying to figure it out.
We all do, and I'm not sure if we will figure it out anytime soon. I'm not sure if this question was for you or for me. James asked, like, is that style? I assume he's thinking about the style of Colombian grooves that you played, similar like that bossa nova. I would say no, because bossa nova is Brazilian and it's
Mm-hmm.
more closer to samba, and it's something that like jazz musicians would play more. But like,
Yeah,
what would you say?
if anything, bossa nova would be more a bigger difference with that it's in 4/4 versus in 12.
Yeah, and you
Um,
play one.
yeah, and you play the one,
Yeah,
uh,
which is helpful
which
for us.
exactly. In Colombia, it was amazing because we were doing some things like, which is I've done exercises in in other groups where it's like just icebreakers to get to know people, where someone plays a rhythm and the next person plays and everyone plays and then the next person plays a rhythm and adds on like that. But like if this is the tempo, someone starts something in this tempo, like generally speaking, in another setting in Europe or America or whatever, people are or whatever, something kind of downbeat oriented as like an additional groove. In Colombia, the very first next thing, and that was almost unanimous, was always, well, if your tempo is 1, 2, 3, 4, the offbeat, and of one, triplet, 1 E, 1 E, 1 E,
Yeah, yep.
and it's like, and as soon as that happens, it's not, no one's thrown off, no one's like, whoa, that's something crazy, how can
Yeah,
you
yeah,
do it?
yeah.
Everyone starts dancing, everyone's like, oh yeah. So I mean, that's similarly with balkan music. You play something in 13,
Yeah,
and everyone gets up to dance.
yeah. It's strange for musicians that listen only Western style of music, like just having an idea that like 13 could be very danceable groove. And I would say that the nine, especially 9 and 11 and 13, like are very danceable.
Hmm.
There's lots of traditional dances where I'm come from, like where that are in those grooves. Um, so I'm actually glad that people are asking questions and ask about Colombian music, because that's not what I was planning to. I forgot about that video that you posted a couple of years ago. Do you plan to go back there? Do you plan to study Colombian music more?
I would love to, if nothing else, to continue working with this group of musicians, and some other friends that I have there. But at the
You should
moment,
release
there's
that album first.
I know we should. There's like it's really there was two things. Uh, it was like two songs that needed like a small edit or like a bit of an overdub or an additional thing that we were gonna do, and that just never happened. And that's of course that's how it goes, and then life, and so it's really close to being ready, and it was really cool to be able to just record it in one short afternoon. Uh, and they wanted to record like, no, let's make a demo, like 3 songs. I'm like, nah, we got this. We can do an album. I think we got like 7, 8, 9 songs, 8
Oh,
songs.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you'll finish that soon, and then that we're gonna be able to hear that. I think like all right, we passed like a 2 hour mark, and so if you, the audience, if you have it, but you're still here, so I can't stop, and I have like all these questions that I wanted to ask Martin, and I wanted to learn. Hopefully, that lesson was helpful for everyone. So now is the time for you to tell me, if you to tell us if you have any questions for Martin or for me, and so that we can answer it. Now it's the time, and he has his bass in his hands, so he can show you if you have any burning questions. And another thing that I would like to know, I would like you to tell me where you guys are based in, so that kind of helps me and it gives me an idea, who's watching, where are you guys watching, and all of that. Also helps YouTube algorithm a little bit, which it's crazy that I have to think about it. I want, as I said before, I want to think just about playing, just about music, and like like having that as a driving force, not like like likes and views and all of that crap.
And also, if people want to reach out to me after this, they're welcome to via any of the social media things.
Great.
Or if they want a lesson, they can take a Skype lesson from me or something like this. I could talk about bass for days, years. I don't know. There's so much. I'm trying to focus. I'm trying to stick to like more or less percussive slapping stuff in this video,
Yep.
um, but there's you can talk about harmonics, like the infinite range of harmonics that the bass has to offer. You can talk about arco techniques. You can talk about other extended techniques. Yeah.
Yeah, extended bass techniques are something that it's amazing, and I would say like Francois Rabat would be like one of the guys that kind of like mastered that, or kind of, I wouldn't say maybe master, like somebody who put the put those extended techniques on the map,
Mm-hmm.
so that we all learn from. And it's interesting that you mentioned harmonics. Um, I remember like the one, it's probably like first jazz workshop that I ever took in my life when I was a kid. I was maybe 17 or 18. It was from, I think he was Dutch, it definitely North European. Anders Jormin was the guy. He mastered those harmonics, like
Mm.
mastered those harmonics. I never seen anyone let anyone do that. And do you mind like demonstrate that? Like, so I now since you mentioned that you
Yeah,
you
sure.
you you you, you spent some time
So,
studying that.
so I mean, one of the big, obviously, almost goes without saying, but the biggest influence for me in that is Jaco Pastorius. And that was his famous song "Portrait of Tracy." I was, like most bass players do when they're in high school learning. They try to figure it out and learn it on electric bass, but my string broke on my electric bass at the time. I was still trying to play some electric bass at that time. And then, so I just said, screw it, I'll learn it on upright. So there's an old video of me playing it on YouTube somewhere on upright. I haven't played it in a while. Do you still hear my bass well?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. I feel like I don't hear myself well. Actually, I don't know. I'm not going to play that right now, just because I feel out of shape for it. But I can just talk a little bit about harmonics. Also, on newer strings, it helps. I think I haven't changed my strings in like 6 years. You can. Where to begin?
It's kind of like a huge topic. I was just wondering, if there's something that you wanted to demonstrate, but
Right.
if you can maybe point out people like to that YouTube video.
Sure. We can point that to that later, or they can search "Portrait of Tracy" on upright bass.
Okay.
One thing I've been working on recently on the new 5-string, and I'll continue working on it when it's set up, is playing the Bach cello suites, or at least the first Bach cello suite, only with harmonics. So we'll see if that ever happens. But I mean, yeah, I think that's maybe worth another video. For just to put simply, for bass players who don't know anything about harmonics, it refers to like the division of the strings. So you can access them by very lightly touching the string. So my brain's a little fried. I'm not sure how to get my thoughts together to explain it well. But at the half point, midway cut through the string, you have the octave. A third of, if you divide the string into 1/3, you have a fifth, which you can hit at both of those places. Then you divide the string in fourth, and you have the octave again. Fifth, you have a third, which you can access at every single one of those places, nodes they call them, at the division of the string, and it goes up to infinity. Fifth, sixth is the octave again, or the fifth again. And for those players, I'm playing with the Pizzicato so that most people, it's more accessible to people. I will say it's a little bit more challenging to allow those notes to ring Pizzicato. But if you have a bow, it's they ring much clearer, and then you can just explore the instruments. You can play scales. But there's different ways of incorporating that and extending the range of the instrument.
Absolutely. Like I would recommend, besides your video, of course, like I would recommend checking out Anders Jormin or Jormin. I'm thinking like he might be Swedish, maybe he's not Dutch, but he's one of the guys that kind of like a master that I seen. And the harmonics that I was like kind of the most impressed when he was doing those artificial harmonics instead of natural ones.
Was he doing
And
artificial harmonics pizzicato or arco?
uh Pizzicato.
Yeah.
And it was very clear, very interesting. I mean, I studied that back then, and I mean, I never got it like as good as him, but it's kind of like a new sound, that I always wanted, and then probably one day I'm gonna work on it. But
Yeah,
Slap took me away.
I know. I only recently started working on artificial harmonics pizzicato, which a lot of people use their thumb to,
Yep.
and I find I never found that comfortable. I think that's why I never worked on it. Uh, so I started, I made up my own way, of course, as you do, and used my first finger instead, almost like barring the fret.
Oh wow. Okay. Interesting. I always use thumb.
And then I play it with my second finger, so it feels more comfortable, like you're playing a string.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I don't know. That's
I
something
think I
about.
only seen people like doing using a thumb. Let me just explain a little bit. Like I'm not sure who's familiar, who's not. Like as far as um, like for natural harmonics, those are the ones that you can. The idea is kind of like to play in the middle of a string, and then you produce the sound. So if you press the note with left hand in the middle of a string, um, not like that. Like if you on certain spots, the ones that Martin mentioned, like there's certain harmonics you can. It's very helpful for tuning, but for artificial ones, you have to kind of fake. Uh, you kind of have to. You're right. It's hard to explain.
So I would say for artificial harmonics, you're using the same principles of the division of a string, but you're shortening the string with your left hand. Therefore,
Yes.
the position of the half of the division of the string changes, and then you have to be really aware of exactly where your right hand is plucking the
Yes.
note.
And then basically you fake the harmonic kind of on a half in a half if you want to do that octave, and then you produce the sound with the other finger. It's a cool technique. So it's very cool technique, but it kind of you need really to study that, like to master it, like everything else. All right, so there's like a couple questions for you. One thing is like, did you ever get into traditional rockabilly bass?
No, sorry
No.
guys. Didn't mean to do
uh,
that.
Another question, also from James. Are there standard double and triplets in your loops? I assume he means about your slap grooves. Are you playing the regular, double slap and triple slap? Which actually reminded me that I wanted to ask you something. Like you do triplets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you do triplets, but you do them with your thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wanted to ask you like something that I also always ask like my guests about nomenclature and terminology as far as slap bass goes. Like, do you use terms like a single slap, double slap, triple slap, and stuff like that, or you're not thinking that way?
I'm not really thinking that way, um, because I don't know, like, what would a triple slap be?
Okay.
It, depending on the rhythm, it would. I guess that would. To me, that means that there's two percussive notes before the next note. And that would be a triple slap, I guess.
Yeah, like for me would be uh, two percussive notes in one note. A note that produces a back slap, I mean the
Mm-hmm.
slap of the string, and palm or a thumb in your
Mm-hmm.
case, slap. So those would be that would be a triple slap, and it could be like a quarter and two eighth notes, or two eighth notes and a quarter, or whatever, but
Right. I know.
always three.
Right. I guess my problem with that being the ambiguity as far as the actual rhythm is concerned, because I could it's some kind of it would you could call them both triple slaps or something, but
Yes,
it's uh,
that's how I'm thinking. Like it could be different uh, rhythmical patterns, but it's always triple slap. If
right,
you have like a three of those.
right.
So okay, so we got that out of the way. Do you have your own terminology for slap patterns at all? Or
I don't. If anything, I just try to figure out the rhythm and internalize it, and sometimes I'll use like quasi Indian terminology.
oh, I want to hear about that.
Tariginato, 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 something like this. Tariginato, takadimi, takadimi. Just as a it's just a easier way of saying 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5. Tariginato, tariginato, tariginato. Um, but I don't know. It would take other than hmm. Sorry, I'm starting to run low on energy.
Oh yeah, especially after 2 hours. All right, so we're gonna finish it soon. Um, One thing that I would like to ask you is like, what kind of advice would you give to younger bass players or other bass players that want to learn your technique? And what kind of advice would you give to younger self, like when you were learning slap bass?
Uh, well, one thing that we kind of touched on earlier, but I don't think I really expressed it was that that I'm grateful for growing up in New Orleans is that one thing that was really expressed to me was to develop your own sound, and that how important that is. So, if people uh, if people hire you, they hire you because of you and because of your sound and because you're the only person that can get that sound. So, for example, just using Charlie Parker, if he was alive as an example, if someone wanted to have someone who sounded like Charlie Parker, they would call Charlie Parker to do the gig. They wouldn't call so and so to gig. I mean, maybe they would because it's cheaper, but and then there have some people who that's okay if that's you want to just devote your life to somebody else's shadow. I guess that serves its own purpose, but really, your voice is kind of like your currency. I've heard someone else say. Um, so so that kind of what makes you valuable, especially if no one else can do it. So people who are starting out, yeah, it's good to try to emulate the people who you like, but try to figure out things that haven't been done before. There's always things that haven't been done before, and a big part of doing that is listening to different instruments, not not the double bass if that's what you play. It goes for any instrument, but try to transcribe solos from different other instruments, whether that's percussion, whether that's saxophone, whether it's piano. See if you can get those sounds even remotely on the bass, and you'll probably have to like do some weird different things or figure out ways of doing it because it's unusual for the instrument, and that kind of gets you out of any kind of habitual pattern. Um, the bass is it's one of the most versatile instruments in the world, I think. A little biased, but um, because of its huge range. All low instruments have a huge range. Uh, so
I couldn't agree more. Like, finding your own voice and your own sound, it should be the ultimate goal for all the musicians.
mhm.
So I'm completely with you on that one. Since this is focused on slap, like besides Cherokee Short and Long by Roland Gehring, what are the other like essential slap bass recordings that you would recommend?
Um,
Is there anything else that comes to your mind?
I don't know. And I think that kind of maybe, if anything, proves the point that like I didn't really listen to a lot of slap bass players growing up.
Well, you created your own style, like you can, when I have students, when I teach them, I tell them like to copy in order to learn kind of everything in order like to create their own style. So that's kind of like my way. But you kind of skipped as far as slap stuff goes. You skipped those first two steps and created your own thing,
Yeah,
which is
one
amazing.
thing I
That's
also
great.
didn't like we talked about before, but um, in addition to Indian music, electronic music and drum and bass was something that was influential to me. So like Square Pusher and stuff like this, and getting those sounds. I didn't think. I mean, it's not really possible, but at one point I wanted to be able to play like breakbeat and drum and bass stuff, grooves, just on acoustic bass.
But do
I
you do
kind of
that at all? Like, do you want to demonstrate that at all, or it's
Yeah, I
something
can.
that
I
you're
can.
working on?
I can demonstrate. I kind of left that goal in the dust a long time ago, but just like if you have
Well, I'm glad I asked you. Like, it's amazing. I love that. You should do that. You should do like at least an EP with that kind of stuff.
for sure.
It's I was never too much into electronic music, but I was really uh into when like real instruments play electronic music. There's something cool
Hmm.
about it.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
I I I always like that. Are there any? Are you following slap bass at all? Like what's happening in that world? Like these days, are there any slap bass players nowadays that you like and appreciate?
Um, I haven't really been paying attention. My main focus these days has really been Arco bass. I haven't. Although I should, continue practicing slapping stuff. Um, I haven't, and I honestly feel a little rusty on it. And it's the arco playing, which I think it's still extremely difficult trying to just play in tune, play some classical stuff. Edgar Meyer is really one of my biggest bass inspirations.
Oh yeah, he's something. That's his intonation is impeccable. I mean, his
Mm-hmm.
feel. I mean, when he plays like a bluegrass stuff, it's just or Appalachian music. There's like one CD that he did um, that is focused on Appalachian music that it's like I was always blown
He has a
away.
he has a trio, a CD with Bella Fleck and Zakir Hussein.
I I think
That's
that's what I heard as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. The combination, the thought to combine bass, banjo, and tabla
Yep,
is crazy, but they do it amazingly well.
they do. Yeah, it's really cool. I wonder, like, I never heard him slapping. Have you ever heard him slapping at all?
Mm-mm.
No, I wonder if he was if he would be into it. Like so there was like some good bluegrass slappers. Okay, so I have like one more question for you. So and then we're done. Like I wanna. So you've been playing for how long now?
I started when I was 14. I'm 30 now, so it's just over 15 years, 16
Okay,
years.
so it's it's so hard like being a musician and being a musician choose to be an artist of any kind as a profession. So it's really hard like to keep it up with all the pressure and then I mean, especially just like look at this year that like brought all of us down lower than we ever were.
Yeah.
So I wanna ask you, like, so what gives you drive to continue doing what you're doing? What does still inspire you? What is the thing that is telling you not to give up and just get a regular job and then uh, live like a normal life, or like
Right.
something that is more socially acceptable?
I mean, I think we all have those thoughts from time to time, right? Um, but I don't think. I mean, for one, growing up with musicians, musical family, I've been seriously fortunate to never have had a real or quote unquote normal job. So I don't think I would be able to. I don't know if I would survive. But really the main inspiration is just love of bass, and that's goes without genres. I just you know I I spend a lot of my time, and this is what inspired me to get into lutherie, um, uh, and making instruments. Just is because I'm blown away by the quality of some instruments and just how they're built, and it's just so beautiful. The whole violin family spectrum, but bass being like the largest one, and with the most character. And what I mean by is that is like the most variation. If you go into a violin shop that sells violins and cellos, you can look down the line and see, you know, all the ribs are exactly perfectly parallel, all the same shape, all the same size. Everyone's trying to mimic the masters, the handful of masters, and there's like a very much calculated method. And a bass shop you walk into, and I don't care if they have 100 basses or 1,000 basses, just about every single one of them will be completely different. Uh, Whether it has like a flat back, round back, uh, violin corners, or gamba corners, or it's really small, or it's really big, or it has a pear shape with a large bottom, or it's more, where it has violin, cello shoulders, or it has an extension, or it has 5 strings, or it has 3 strings, or it has 6 strings. I've seen, and there's so much variation. I just am in love with the instrument. And then musically, it's infinite. So it's still discovering new sounds that I'd never had done before, and new things um, that I haven't seen other people do before, and I'm like, oh wow, this sounds cool. This is different. I've never done this before. I'm gonna start working on it. So that's kind of what drives me forward, I guess.
It's love and passion.
Mm-hmm.
We can't. I don't think that normal people can figure out. That we have to do this. It's just like there's no other option. You
Mm-hmm.
have to do this. All right, man. We're like 2 hours and a half. Like,
Wow.
thanks so much. Like, I've been, I did like some like really long ones, and then I keep saying to myself like, you have to keep it under an hour or like hour and a half, and that's but there's like so many topics. Its
I
base
know.
is like kind of like endless inspiration, and then when I find like a guys like you, I want to present as the most complete way possible. So we as bass players don't get a chance like to be interviewed or presented that often, and so I want to change that. um, Thanks a lot, Martin. Like, I'm really thankful you shared your knowledge and your expertise and showed us like a different approach to slap. And I can't wait to hear your music. I can't wait to hear that new Colombian album that you're working on that
Mm-hmm.
you already recorded, and see you play in New Orleans or maybe here in California.
Yeah, I mean, for the people watching, just start uh, following my Instagram or YouTube. I'm about to start. I've done like one or two live streams where I call it the solo sunset, because I'm trying to take all this electronic equipment and take it out into a field and perform with that while the sun is setting in the background, and more kind of like improvisation, meditation kind of thing.
That sounds
Uh,
interesting. I'll check that out.
but yeah, I took a small break from it just to, well, because I had some problems with electronics not working and everything, and I'm like, I'm just gonna play acoustic for a while, but I'm gonna start doing that, and I'm gonna start. I'll either be live streaming them or I'll pre-record it in high quality to and put it on YouTube, because I found you run into more problems when you're as far as internet connection and stuff like this when
Oh,
it's just
I
live. So
know. I
I
know.
know you know.
Yeah, I'm surprised actually that this is 10th episode, and then I'm surprised that I've been like every Saturday I'm like, oh, okay, I did it. I did it. It's another one. Okay, so but it's great, I got like lots of cool feedback, and then nothing makes me happier than like make all these people that watch like, happy, and then open their mind like into something new. So there's like a good music everywhere, so we just have to be aware of that and be ready for it. um, all right, so those live streams or pre-recorded live streams, they're going to be on your YouTube channel.
That's the plan. Until now,
Okay.
they've been on Facebook, so you can find some ones that I've done already on Facebook. But I think
All
I
right,
can upload a higher quality to YouTube. So
cool, man. All right, thanks again. If you do that, please make sure like to send me a message or add me to your email list or whatever you're doing, so I would definitely like to check those out. And thanks a lot for your time.
yeah, thank you.
Wish you all the best, and I can't wait what you're gonna come up with next. You're so creative.
Cool. Thanks, Djordje, for having me.
Welcome. All right, like another 2.5 hours mark is is broken. I'm like, I guess I can't stop talking about bass and slap bass. It's We got like a comment from Kevin. Again, thank you both. Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. If you haven't seen Kevin's episode, it's the first slap stream that I ever did, and it was a very successful one. And I love Kevin. And thanks for watching. And we got from Carolyn D. Thank you again for a very interesting interview. So I've been working on lots of interesting interviews, and they're going to come up with for the first time. I'm actually scheduling people like a month in advance, so I know pretty well who my guest is going to be next month and a half. So I should be more organized. And but I really appreciate your subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to. Oh no, it's here. Yeah, somewhere around here. It should be a subscribe button. So please press that one. Um, Ring that bell that's gonna let you know if I post like new videos, and like it, comment under the video, comment like if you'd like me to feature someone, so that we do so that I know what you want to see. I have my own ideas, and there's like lots of bass players that I respect that I want to feature, but I would like to hear your opinion as well. I get some of these players that I discovered because thanks to you, because you sent me messages and told me about it like over the years. I always want to hear. I always want to learn, and I always want to hear about new slap bass players, and then new ways of applying slap like to any music style. That's why I'm trying to keep all these things interesting. I kind of started with like, all right, so rockabilly, country, bluegrass, jazz, um, experimental. Now we had like kind of like Indian and Balkan, and I plan to feature more Balkan stuff as well, because I think it's something that people should hear about, and be aware of that. Um, if you haven't subscribe, please ring that bell. There's a couple donation links under the video. Please donate if you can, and that's gonna help me out. Continue doing this. There's a Venmo and PayPal link, and there's also Patreon. So Patreon is great because it's really that way you're really supporting Slapstream and the stuff that I do. Um, we got like a few more questions. So then I'm gonna answer. Got any traditional rockabilly slappers coming down the pipeline? Yes, I'm actually working on feature one of the guys that I really wanted to feature for a long time from the 50s that did like some really cool stuff in the 50s. So keep an eye on the channel. If you're not on the email list, make sure to send an email at contact@artofslapbase.com, and that way you're going to get information and the links where I'm going to be posting and when I'm going to be posting those links. um, Psychobilly as well. Like I have, there's like a two psychobilly bass players coming up in um, next month. So I haven't really covered that. Like the closest to psychobilly was Scott Owen from the Living End. But there's like quite a few psychobilly bass players that I want to feature that I think they have like something cool to say. So I'm gonna do that, and I want to thank Fernando Slap from Buenos Aires, from Argentina, because he's the one responsible for all these cool slaptastic graphics. So without him, I would be lost. It would not look as cool as it does. So huge shout out to Fernando. All the links for if you want to follow Martin, all the links are below the video. If you want to follow me, all the links are below as well. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, websites, all of that stuff. And for Fernando as well. And the most important, please follow Art of Slap Bass on Instagram and Facebook, because that's where everything slap bass is where I posted, and not just me. There's Ryan Gould as well that is helping me out with this project. He's been posting some really cool stuff about, especially about old school um, slap bass players. And we got like a couple new administrators of the page, so there should be more content coming out. So follow Art of Slap Bass, and for the next episode, now I can start announcing like week earlier. So next episode, I'm gonna feature another luthier, another dear friend of mine. Most of you know him from the Blast Cult or the King Double Bass. I'm gonna feature Jason Burns, who recently moved to London and opened a second Blast Cult shop. He's been making basses for me or for Miles Mosley, for Jimbo, Lee Rocker, lots of great players, and he's an excellent player as well. And I'm actually excited like to feature him as a player as well, because he has like some cool lines that I wanted to feature in the lesson part of the Slapstream. So make sure to follow the channel and send us an email at contact@artofslapbase.com, and you'll get a link for that. And as usual, don't forget, never fret, slide it in smooth, and keep it in the groove. This is Djordje Stijepovic. I am Bullfiddle Cat, your friendly neighborhood Bullfiddle Cat on all social media. And I'll see you next Saturday.